Welcome to our August 2025 virtual assessment meeting, where we are primarily going to be focusing on what's going to be happening with program review this year. But before we do that, let's jump into some housekeeping items. Assignments for the 25-26 assessment showcases that take place within our regularly scheduled SAC meetings have been sent to the SAC members. So please make sure they're on your calendars. If you are an AVP or a director and you want to stop by and see showcase, we generally start our meetings off with this. So those meetings are on Wednesday mornings, and Hannah can help you find the specific day and forward that appointment to you. Also on our housekeeping list is just some updates about our coaching summary. This is a document that I had created and was internal use for me and Dr. Angela. However, last year we did find out that there may be some benefit to sharing permissions so that you can see where you're at with the varied tasks. With this, I realized that it maybe needed some reformatting and some enhancements to be more user-friendly for an external audience. The first enhancement that I made was adding due dates. So that gives you an idea of the last time I checked it and maybe why a status hasn't changed, even if you've done something in the interim. Do feel free, if you want to click in the box if you see something that indicates that it needs some work or it's missing and you've go ahead and taken care of it, go ahead and put a comment in there if you would like. That'll send a note to my inbox and just let me know that you took care of that, and I can go in and check that off for you. Otherwise, I come in every week, every other week, maybe once a month, or even longer depending on the season that it's in, and kind of do a sweeping check on everyone collectively. The next update that you'll see is I tried to group tasks into segments by color based upon what the activity is. So each year we write 3 to 5 outcomes that our unit is looking at, and all of this will be in blue. I will group together our program review information, whether it's our 3 CAS parts that we're doing or how we're moving into external review this year. Those will be in different colors. The last enhancement that I made was to go ahead and put a row in here for a link to any relevant materials where you can find what was assigned and or directions on how to complete the work. So it is a good idea for you to go ahead and bookmark this coaching summary. You'll find the different years on the tabs at the bottom. By the end of today's meeting, you should be able to communicate how external review will be implemented this year. You should be able to identify the key components of the external review and who is responsible for what, and you should be able to discuss the timeline that we are going to be striving toward. So let's jump right in. As we add more components to our assessment work, I do understand it can get complicated, so I tried to make this graph just to clean things up a little bit. Up in the blue, you'll see that we have our familiar annual plan with 3 to 5 outcomes and 1 student learning outcome. This is what we do each year. Down at the bottom, we have program review, and what you're familiar with at this point is the purple. We've done 3 CAS parts each year over the past few years, and this year we're going ahead and adding in that green, which is external review. It's going to have 2 pieces to it that kind of float back and forth. The director is going to be in charge of initiating the external review, making contact with their external reviewer, and setting up a plan for that individual to do a site visit. And then alongside of that, we're going to have a SAC member conducting that external review. The SAC member will be able to provide an external review to one of our fellow OSUM functional areas. And then it flips back to the director, who will receive that external review report from the SAC member. They'll review it, respond to it, develop an action plan, and decide what actions need to be implemented based upon that external review moving forward. So let's start talking about our timeline and who's going to be doing what. I want to remind you that all along there's been an intentional phased-in approach where as the division is learning about program review, we're doing it in an experimental way to then move forward and execute it in whole in future iterations. So this phase-in approach is going to start internally with one awesome member externally reviewing another unit. In future iterations, we're going to invite you to consider other individuals outside of Awesome, other experts we have here at HACC, and or external to the institution. But before we do that, let's take a minute to talk about why we're doing external review in this phased-in approach. Starting doing external review within OSUM is going to help us build a personal understanding and capacity for the process. It's going to give each of us experience as a recipient of receiving feedback, as well as being a provider of feedback and recommendation. It's going to be great for our team to build a broader understanding of other units within OSUM, and it's absolutely going to prepare us for middle states and a deeper level of examination without having defensiveness. Examining our own work versus having other people with a fresh set of eyes come in and examine our work are two different things. Beginning with someone in Awesome to thoroughly examine your written work, examine your oral explanation, and still make recommendations based upon their finding will be a great first step in this experience for us. So now I'm going to jump into the timeline for each of the components of assessment for the next academic year. This is just an introduction. We'll walk through it a little bit more in detail during our September training, and I will put these resources on our assessment site. So part one is that annual plan that we've been doing year after year after we have our 3 to 5 outcomes. And this is the timeline that we're looking at. You've already written your outcomes, hopefully, or you've heard from me if you haven't. And you have hopefully mapped them. And then you can see we're going to follow the year as we always have, ending with putting those results in by June 30th. The next part of our assessment plan is the 3 to 5 outcomes that we've been doing for the past few years. So let's take a peek at what that timeline looks like. In May, you already submitted the 3 parts that you're going to do this year. 2 things to highlight here is November 15th. We are expecting you to have that first part into Nuventive. We found that providing this structure is helpful to make sure that everyone is getting going with their self-assessment. So pick whichever one of the 3 parts you have and make sure that it is completed and into Nuventive by November 15th. The other date I want to point out is that May 15th. It's a time to celebrate because at that time we are identifying which parts need to be completed during the 26-27 year, and that is the rest of our program review parts. So definitely something to celebrate there. When you are doing your self-study, it is going to go into the self-assessment / program review self-study area. So what's new this year is introducing external review, and we talked about there being a few different pieces. One is going to be the assessment leader, who's like the director or the AVP. The other is going to be the SAC member or the assigned person who is going to be going and reviewing a different unit. So a person who's requesting to be reviewed and a person who is providing that feedback. So starting with the assessment leader who's asking for the review, your timeline is starting pretty soon. We do want to know if you are going to be incorporating anyone else outside of the division in doing this program review this year, just so that we know what that process is going to look like. On September 10th, we are going to announce the pairings of which units are going to be paired for external review. And then we will spend a bunch of time on September 16th helping to start the process of program review. And there'll be more information to come on that. Hopefully by October 15th, you'll have your meeting set to kick off your external review, and those site visits that we'll explain more about should be conducted by April 30th. If you are a person who is going to be reviewing, let's chat about what your timeline looks like. Again, September 10th, you're going to learn about who you are paired up with at our SAC meeting, and we're going to go into detail about what your role is going to look like. September 16th, you're going to have that initial interview with the person who is requesting the program review. You'll attend that kickoff meeting in October. From October to April, you're going to be doing that external review. And if appropriate, you'll do a site visit in April. And then make sure that within the next month, you have your feedback documented in Nuventive and a summary report submitted to the unit that you are externally reviewing. Your information is also going into Nuventive. It is going into the self-assessment program review feedback area of Nuventive. And essentially, you're going to be seeing if the unit provided sufficient evidence to give themselves a rating, and whether or not you're in agreement with the findings that they provided. You'll be providing written feedbacks for each of the CAS parts that you're reviewing, and that includes comments as well as any recommendations that you might have for them. At this point, the units have received the feedback, and responsibility pops back over to the leader of the unit. So the role after you've received feedback, you are going to be writing a written response to the external review, a summary about the process, and intended steps in regards to an action plan moving forward. You'll be doing this in collaboration with your supervisor. We'll be using our September planning session next year to help provide space, time, and support in order to do this. So your response to the external review, the action plan, is going to go into the CQI portion of Nuventive. And essentially, you're going to be indicating whether you agree or disagree with the comments and the recommendations. Which ones do you plan to address, and what is your timeline? And then over time, as you address those outcomes, you'll be going back in and reporting that they have been addressed and what that outcome on them is. So take a deep breath. This is a lot. I will see you in September for the planning session, and we'll go over this again. Until then, if you have any questions or concerns, please do reach out to me. Thanks.